my talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo, where you question where you fit in every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. I am Dramos. Of course, it is Thursday, so it means it's time for our Thursday Trends episode. Helping me break down some of these stories this week, he is a writer, actor, comedian, known as the Funny Latino. Romanes, how you feeling, my bro?
What's going on, everybody? This is your boy Romanes, also known as the Funny Latino, and everything that I do is from the Bronx.
I love it, brother. I love it, man. So man, my family is from the Bronx as well. So we got some Bronx ties in the building, which I love.
What part of the Bronx?
South Bronx. So my grandma, for as long as I can remember, used to live on you know where Everett Drive is?
Okay.
Right off, yeah, I want to say it's like one. I don't even want to give you the wrong street. 167 around that area.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where our stomping grounds are. My memories of the Bronx go.
Well, that section of the Bronx is called High Bridge.
Okay.
Section of the Bronx. That's closer towards like Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. We had a lot of memories going to Yankee Stadium back in the day.
There you go. Nothing but traffic, but I love the Yankees.
Yeah, they don't love us back right now, but that's a topic for another conversation. Man, so we're gonna dive into a few different topics this last week that have been trending. We're gonna some of it's kind of heavy, but you gotta talk about what's going on in the world, right? So we'll talk about diversity, right? This whole end of the diversity programs at elite colleges, and now a study is coming out that actually they have been favoring certain groups of people, which I think comes at no surprise, but now we're seeing the hard numbers and it's kind of startling to think about. So we're gonna dive into that. We're gonna talk about a really sad story about a Florida farm worker who died after the extreme heat. And you have activists calling for reform as far as job conditions go, and that kind of ties hand in hand with the UPS strike that was just avoided. And some of the things that they were asking for, I genuinely cannot believe in 2023 this was even a question. So we're going to get into that. We're going to touch on this pop culture story. I know off mic we talked about this isn't your thing, but I think it is an interesting topic of conversation. You have artists Raúl Alejandro and Rosalia breaking up. They were a very, very public couple, made music together, put out the videos, talked about their engagement, all that good stuff. And I've seen a lot of debate in general about, people maybe putting up too much of their private business out there when it comes to their dating life and things like that. So we'll touch on that. And then, depending on where you stand here, this is more of a positive story, but it's about Colombia and specifically the city of Medellin trying to get away from their narcos history, which has brought in just a weird sort of tourism that kind of celebrates a really dark period of time for the country. So they're trying to move in the right direction. So we're going to get into all that. First and foremost, though, man, let's just dive into the nonsense, kind of the BS, the heavy stuff from the last week. We'll do it in a segment we call For the People in the Back.
Say it louder for the people in the back. Say it louder for the people in the back.
All right, so let's kind of start on a more medium story. We won't start with the heaviest one. But there's this new study that finds that children from wealthiest families are more than twice as likely to attend elite universities. Now, obviously, I don't think any of us needed a study to tell us that, but it was important because obviously you had the Supreme Court decision recently that took away the diversity measures that places like Harvard had to enact in order to bring in, students of color and prioritize them as a student body. Now, this study, though, does bring up some really crazy fucking numbers, right? Because it says children from families in the top 1% financially are more than twice as likely to attend an elite university than those from middle-class families with comparable SAT and ACT scores, right? And a lot of the argument against diversity, a lot of people say, they're letting people in who aren't qualified. And obviously, this is showing that that's not the case. These are comparable scores, and the people are being favored are the elites, which is why these diversity measures were needed. Now, the research group conducted by Opportunity Insights, which is actually a Harvard group of researchers, they are looking at 8 Ivy League universities, in addition to Stanford, MIT, Duke, and the University of Chicago. The study determined multiple factors drove the advantage, right? Preference for legacy admissions, right? Kids who were the children of parents who went there or grandparents, right? And they were actually given preferential treatment. And then you also had weight that was placed on non-academic credentials, so whatever that means. Maybe it's the children of a big donor, right? And then athletic recruitment. And specifically, when we talk about athletic recruitment, a stipulation that I heard was made was a lot of these sports that we're talking about, they're not the typical ones that we hear about where it comes from kids from the hood getting saved to play basketball or football. A lot of them are really elite, like rowing, exactly. Rowing, shit that they do not have in the Bronx. There's, I can almost guarantee the high schools in the Bronx do not have rowing teams, right? This is like rich people shit, rich people sports, and those are the people that are getting athletic recruitment. Now, this is what was crazy to me, and then I want to get your take. The study found that those attending one of the elite institutions, right, that there's actually long-lasting effects on those people who have been given preferential treatment. It says it increases students' chances of reaching the top percent of the top 1% of income in this country, increases their chances by 60%. So going to one of these elite universities increases the students' chances of reaching the top 1% of people in this country by 60%. And it almost doubles the likelihood of them attending an elite graduate school, triples their chances of getting employed at a prestigious firm or company. And in this case, they're defining the top 1% as people making over $611,000, right? Bro, how wild is it, though, to see that number, right? That's what was startling to me, that it increased their chances of joining that 1% by 60%. And these are kids that are already coming from privileged backgrounds.
Well, I mean, it's not surprising, that you are part of that elite part of society that you want to secure, just as much for your offspring, for your children, and those well connected to you. So, like how we say here, we can't hate the player. You understand? We got to hate the game a little bit. Sure. And the way we chose to shine some of that was through affirmative action, was through, making sure we had more of an opportunity to get minority students up in there. But the disproportion, I'll tell you the truth, it's not surprising. The big people want to secure it for the big people. That's my little one walking around.
Yeah, I was making a cameo. I love it.
That she walked on frame. But that's what it's about. I'm not surprised by it. I am absolutely not surprised by it.
But I'm not shocked, but it is startling to see the number that drastic, right? Because it just explains everything moving forward, right? Because then these are the people that get the high jobs as, CEOs, people in power positions. And who are they going to hire? More of the people who exist in who are swimming in the same pool as them, right? Or who come from the same background. And that has generational effects on our quality of life as people of color in this country. And that is sort of what is crazy. And that points out the dangers of something like affirmative action being taken away.
Absolutely. Once again, there needs to be steps in order to go up, and there needs to be steps in order to go down, and what role we play in society on those steps will determine how long we stay there. But we can also transition upwards by, we were talking about the elite sports, right? Okay.
Yep.
Nothing prevents anyone from the hood other than getting out there and learning more, pushing yourself and figuring out, other sports to get those opportunities to perhaps earn one of those athletic scholarships. The wild part, though, is that there's a whole other, study that needs to be made on the percentage of students that receive those scholarships, those money invites to attend those institutions. The proportion remains large.
Right.
This whole 1% securing it for their people, that's one part of the puzzle. There's a whole other part of who else receives the equity to continue participating and being involved in the institutions that help us progress in life in the future.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's a larger conversation than just Harvard, just the colleges, just all of these different things. It's a system that has been put in place intentionally, you know? And I think what is interesting to me though is that like this person who brought up this lawsuit that went to the Supreme Court and effectively reversed affirmative action at these colleges, they've just now opened up a can of worms on all of these schools, and all of their practices are going to now be under a microscope. And I think trying to look at things glass half full, now someone like Harvard looks terrible when you bring out these numbers, right? When you bring out the numbers of these Ivy League schools, because it's blatant how much of an advantage things like this give rich white people, essentially, right? And now this is just one study. Again, you're going to have other groups who now are going to dive deeper and deeper into this, and it's going to mess up the game for all these people. So I'd imagine the person who brought up this lawsuit is going to have some sort of target on their back at some point, because they're messing it up for all these 1%ers who had a little bit of an easier ride all these years.
I mean, it's crazy when you ask how many kids graduated from the school with the same last name as the library, or as the same last name as the hall.
Yeah.
Once again, you know, we arrived at this rock at a certain point that put us in a position to unfortunately have to wait in line for that. You know, they were absolutely here first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and to your point, we have to figure out ways to kind of beat them at their own game. You know, we got to pick up rowing, right? That's that's got to become our number one sport in the hood, rowing. So the other story I wanted to get to, and this one, you know, it's sad. It's a very sad story, but it kind of just points out again the working class and the lack of not only prioritization, but there's the lack of humanity that goes on for those who are the have-nots, right? I mean, you have this story in Florida, and it's a Florida farm worker. His name was Efrain Lopez Garcia, only 29 years old, died earlier in July as a result of a heat stroke from working outside at a farm in Homestead, Florida. And now this has, you know, certain politicians. You have the Miami-Dade County Commissioners, Keon McGee and Marlene Bastein, introducing a bill to establish new heat standards for outdoor workers. The ordinance stipulates that companies in Miami-Dade County must provide workers with water, and on days where the heat index is at 90 degrees, give them a 10-minute break in the shade. Companies will also need to train workers and supervisors on heat safety to avoid fatalities, and they'll avoid some sort of penalty if they violate this. And we have to put it in writing that they have to give a damn about their employees working in extreme conditions. But B, the thing it leads me to that I want to get your take, because it's infuriating. But like, then I started thinking about the UPS strike that was in about to happen, right? And now, luckily, the Teamsters Union and UPS have reached a preliminary labor deal, and it's looking like it's not going to happen. We're not going to get shut down, which is great. But what I didn't realize was one of the things they were fighting for was getting air conditioning in their trucks.
At this day and age.
Like, what? Bro, that I can't imagine. I can't believe all of these years these guys have been driving around in the middle of summer, and those who work in these states where it's hot year round, and they didn't have air conditioning in the truck. Like, this is what they have to fight for?
At this day and age. Don't be surprised. And they're not the only ones. There's other organizations that do not have representation from unions that most likely suffer from the same issue. That's just one part of it, the no AC. Right. And remember, like in the Northeast, we're just talking for the Northeast, right?
Sure.
Because we understand, you know, with the climate change, how hot it's been recently. Yep. But in the Northeast, for us up here, to be real, it's hot maybe 2 months out of the year. So it may not be a big issue for the Northeast. But in other parts, like, yo, that's damn near torture. And you know, the tragedy with this Florida employee could have been averted if at least there would be some policy in place that indicates that once the weather is above a certain amount, keep your employees in the shade. Only work in the shade. Feel the shade and figure a way for them to continue working, but don't have them exposed in the sun. That's completely torture.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy, though, that as human beings, we have to put a policy in place to make people give a damn about somebody else's life like that?
sincerely, it is amazing, but it's not surprising, because a lot of us fall short of sharing rewards. A lot of us, want the reward for ourselves and don't look at, what else logistically needs to be blessed so that I could continue to produce,
Right.
Like a lot of us really just be like, yo, mine. Commission?
Yeah.
Why commission? No, but you have to have other things that will protect you continuing to earn. Like that's what it's about. It's surprising, but it does not amaze me.
Right. Well, and it's because unfortunately the culture that we have in this country, it values profit over humanity, over morality, over any of those things, right? And we celebrate these people who sit atop the sort of, we talk about the 1%ers, but there is somebody who runs that company that this man was working for, or is sitting at the top of the totem pole, and is not, he's sitting in the air conditioner in some office, or he's on a beach somewhere, and he's like, give these guys a day off. No way, make them work. We need to drive profits up, right? Like that, and everybody's just like, oh, let's put him on the Forbes list, right? Because now he made 1.1 billion instead of 1 billion that he did last year, right? Let's move him up on the Forbes list and celebrate that man. And it's like, bro, these guys are taking advantage of the everyday person, and we're bailing out these industries, when they go rogue, like the airline industry or the bankers. And the middle class, the everyday workers, even though we're the ones that are the nuts and bolts of this entire operation for these companies to work, we're still held at the bottom and not valued whatsoever.
That is the truth, my brother. Like you said it, my man, that's poetic. The way you said it was magical. It's the truth. It is, like look, it's an ecosystem. The ecosystem cannot exist from the middle up or from the top alone. There needs to be a whole thing in place to make it all work. And we're already touching on all these topics that basically, as unrelated as they may be, they still connect with one another at the fact that society and certain people in society are held at a certain helm so that all else can progress and produce.
Yeah, no, that's a great kind of way to put it. And it's one of those situations where they also know they have us, by the balls, right? Because at the end of the day, people who work for UPS, it's like UPS is a good job because it's a stable job, right? I'm sure they have a pension, they have things like that. So to these workers, it's like, yeah, this sucks and it's unfair, but the alternative might be putting my family at risk of not having a place to sleep, not having a meal on the table. At least I'm providing a lifestyle, right? So these people know that, and they're going to take advantage of them. And to your point, if those corporations or those industries that don't have unions looking out for them to fight on behalf of them, they're going to be taken advantage of even worse, because again, these bigger corporate giants, they know you need them, right? They like you're replaceable to them because they're going to always find some other kid who's going to work for cheap and this and that, right? And you're in a tough position, and they know that. And rather than create an environment that everybody wins, because that's very possible, right? Because if we're talking about there's a whole writer's strike, right, with the entertainment industry and all these different things, right? And Bob Iger from Disney, I believe his salary was something like $500 million a year, right? Bro, that guy wouldn't even feel it if his salary got cut to $300 million a year. You know what I'm saying? Like he wouldn't that wouldn't touch his lifestyle, his quality of life, his kids' life, his kids' life, right? Like it would be so far down the generation line for him to actually feel that sort of a pay cut. Meanwhile, these people are literally just asking for a wage that is payable, that they can survive, right? And that to me is like the microcosm, like the zeitgeist that we live in this country. That's the perfect example. And we're all just like okay with it. Nobody's actually questioning it.
Well, the situation with UPS was that one of the challenges is that the majority of their workforce consisted of part-time workers. And, oftentimes part-time workers feel like they have a lesser voice. They feel like they have, less attachment because they're there less. They're basically, called seasonal employees sometimes, even to feel like they're, less of the system. But the full-time guys are so busy, sometimes overworked, that they're too tired to even have a voice. But eventually, when situations come across, certain circumstances, it basically motivates everyone to start having conversations. We had a 2-year break with the pandemic. Some of us had a 2-year break with the pandemic. And what that made many of us with union jobs feel is that we're fortunate to have jobs, that we're fortunate to have representation to protect our jobs, to make sure that we have dignified wages, and at the same time to provide something like what you mentioned, pensions, 401ks, whatever kind of savings plans towards, retirement. So we return to those jobs just as humble, and I would say almost as voiceless as the part-timers. So because we all came back, and we were lucky to come back, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But eventually things come to a point where conversations need to be had and wages need to be increased. And I'm going to say kudos to the Teamsters for getting what they wanted, a dignified wage that is consistent with the cost of living.
Right. Well, that's the other part of the conversation, because you have people who are like, oh, minimum wage can't be $15 an hour. People at McDonald's shouldn't be making $15 an hour. And it's like, you're thinking of $15 an hour when you were a teenager. The world is a lot more expensive than it was back then. $15 doesn't go as far as it did back then, right? And that's like part of the issue I have with people who complain about things like that. And you can look at the numbers, like statistically speaking, the cost of living has gone up at a far higher rate than the wages, right? So what do you think is going to happen if the cost of living is rising at, 4 times, I believe it's actually 10 times the rate of wages? How do you expect people to then live, right? Like, how do you expect people to actually afford a roof over their head? I mean, and you being from New York and me being from the New York area, like, how crazy is it in New York right now? Like, for people to afford to be able to live in the city, right? And if they voted to like allow the rent increase to happen a certain percentage now, like it's just I don't know if it's pure evil. I don't know if the politicians are so out of touch they don't even recognize what is going on, bro. I'm at a bit of a loss, like how we've even gotten here,
So thank you for making a complete, understanding of it. We have lost our mind. Landlords absolutely lost their mind. I'm fortunate enough to have a roof over my head in a neighborhood where I don't have to really look over my shoulder too much.
Right.
And we all know who we are. Everyone here respects one another, and we all know who we are. But in all seriousness, bro, unless there's going to be some form of an understanding that with all the newly arrived immigrants in this nation, to be incorporated into opportunities to, sustain communities, there's needs. Every community has a need. And unfortunately, there isn't a budget to always fulfill those needs. But guess what? We have an influx of people. And guess what's more important than a budget? Actual workforce. If you have people that are here that have arrived, be able to, provide something for the area that they're in to help sustain their, mobility there, then we are working with something. Our rents are ridiculous. They're offering programs here in New York because we've ran out of shelters for these new people, right? They're offering where they're willing to give you $150 to $100 a day per person you're willing to take in for 1 month until policymakers out here figure out something to do with how to get people living somewhere.
Sure.
All right. Guess what? That sounds like an earning opportunity. And I'm going to tell you what's going to happen is people in our beautiful communities that are already struggling are going to take people in. And now we're going to have super overpopulated, struggling communities. So things are going to get even worse, my brother. That's why rent is where it's at. Because they're basically already telling us, you're going to need about 5 more roommates, homie, if you want to stay living with.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, even kids that are fresh out of college they went to school, they got a good job and all that kind of stuff. I know so many people who have these like high profile jobs, they have roommates because they live in the New York City area, right? They can't afford to live by themselves, even if they are working some of these financial jobs and things like that. And like, that's crazy to me that you've gone through the track that you were supposed to go through. You went to school, right? And you paid the money, you did the time, you went and got a real job, and you still have to live as if you lived in college. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just, it's obvious that it's a broken, it's just a broken system. You know what I mean? And I don't know who's going to fix it. And like you said, it's only going to get worse. And it doesn't seem like there's any real solution in sight, because in places like where I used to live in Jersey City, they're knocking down those old buildings that were, owned by individuals who family owned it for generations. They're building brand new high-rise condos by big developers. And who do you think those are getting sold or rented to? It's the elite. So what happens to those people in the middle class who were living there, and now they have to find somewhere new to live and they can't afford to go anywhere? Like, and the local government is the one giving out those permits and those contracts for them to build these things. So it's just like nobody's actually taking into consideration, wait, where the fuck are we going to start putting the people who are living, normal middle class lives? At some point, we're going to run out of neighborhoods for them to go into.
It's absolutely true, bro. It's, I mean, honestly, to even try to like think what will happen, is terrifying. It's like you have to keep it at, all right, hopefully nothing crazy is going to happen where all of a sudden a whole community is just washed out. And think about people's right now, like the water. How good is the drinking water in certain parts around the country? And why is it not being supported? Why is it not being spoken about more? I think one of the things that we absolutely protect is our water supply. And I'm going to say, there are going to be communities where people be like, yo, the water in this area sucks. We're moving.
Right.
You understand? They're going to be opening up. Right. I read an article the other day about a certain community in one of the Dakotas that chose to stay quiet about their water because their average rent is $600. And if the water situation is looked into and fixed, their rent might go up 50%, and they don't want that.
Right.
Is that where we're going to have to give up a basic need to be able to afford to live somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great and very sad example. But yeah, the fact that people are even at a place where they have to make decisions like that just to survive, right? That's just, yeah. I mean, listen, we're not going to solve the issue on this podcast, but you just hope that that these conversations, it starts waking more and more people up, because I think a lot of people are a bit asleep at the wheel to a degree, right? Don't really recognize how bad things are, for the average everyday person. You know what I mean? And I didn't realize it completely until I bought some property down in a more blue collar neighborhood, and I run a business out of it, and I see people having trouble paying $40 on their credit card, and that being like a consistent thing. And it's like, man, people are really hurting. Like, people are hurting. They're literally, I run a U-Haul, I have a U-Haul business, and they're having to, like, they're not even able to move their stuff and do the basic things that they need to do because they can't afford the $40 rental. Like, that's scary. That's really, really, really scary that somebody's card is declining on $40, that they're hurting that badly. And obviously we don't know their entire story, but nobody in the United States of America should be at that point. We shouldn't have a level of people living paycheck to paycheck, which I believe it's like 60% of the U.S. lives paycheck to paycheck. We shouldn't have the amount of unhoused people that we have. It's just, I don't know, man. And then the people that push the American propaganda, best country in the world, go somewhere else if you don't like it. It's like, bro, we can't just keep turning a blind eye based on the fact that we have like cool songs and we like to wave this flag and we pretend like everything is okay. Like, we actually really have to start critiquing and start having these conversations and start holding our politicians accountable before there is nothing left, right? We can't sit here and say it's anti-patriotic to critique the country. If that's the case, we're just going to end up going further and further along until there's no going back at that point.
The wild part is like the disproportion in the wealth that our society holds and our society needs shocks me when I hear that we have And here in New York City, right, about 70,000, public school kids that are what they call food insecure. In other words, 70,000 public school kids that don't know if they're going to have another meal and are homeless. 70,000. However, three hot celebrities can say we're having a concert tomorrow in New York City, and they'll sell out all three venues. I'm not hating on a single celebrity, but I have a claim on our city's wealth. When we have that much wealth, however, we still possess that much need.
Yeah. No, and that's a great point. I went to a public school, elementary school in New York, and that school gave out free breakfast and free lunch because that's the only time those kids would be able to eat breakfast or lunch, right? And summer school in the Bronx wasn't for kids who failed out of classes. It was because their parents had nobody to watch them and they couldn't afford to put them in a camp or anything like that. So the school provided summer school to at least keep the kid there during the day, right? And make sure they had that breakfast and lunch. Like, and without that, right? Because you have people trying to cut educational funding and things like that. It's like, man, that's wild. Think 70,000 kids like can't guarantee where their next meal is going to come from. That's scary, scary stuff.
But we could sell out, a hot film 2 weeks in advance. You know what I'm saying? We could do all the hot stuff, but we can't feed our kids. Not for nothing. I put my hand on my chest because I look for other opportunities to do that. My wife works for the Department of Education, and when I tell you that there's times that they choose to stay open later, certain times of the year, they choose to stay open later because they know families need to eat. So they'll extend the extra meal. You know what I'm saying? So like they'll do like an impromptu Thanksgiving welcoming family event just to bring people in to just, hey, take food. If you need it, come get it, just eat it and enjoy. Bro, those are like feel the efforts, but those are some of the things that we can provide for our people in need.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm glad we had this conversation. My mom was actually a principal in the Bronx. She was a teacher for years and a principal. So all this stuff hits close to home for me because I used to help her out, and you just saw, I would go back home to Jersey or whatever, and just stark differences. You know what I mean? And these kids are the ones that are suffering, and they're innocent in all of this. And like you said, there's no shortage of people selling out Madison Square Garden, selling out 4 nights of Beyonce at MetLife Stadium, and not that we can't have fun, and enjoy ourselves, but it does show like how much excess we have, while so many people just literally don't have the essentials, right? And that shouldn't make you feel very good about where we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, bro. It's wild because when you really think about that, right? If we're able to sell out $10 million worth in tickets in 15 minutes, then what does that tell you? Does that tell you that we really need, our politicians and our government to help us sustain and build and evolve? Really, no. It just means that it requires a certain amount of us woke enough to unite and say, you know what, let's put all our resources together, fix this, and own these politicians, own the policies, and bring things forth, like making sure we do get affirmative action, give us the opportunity to really, really earn those positions and be part of that 1%. Give us the equity required so that we can make our communities better. Like I'm gonna give you one of the craziest examples. You know what I'm saying? Like the beginning of May, I started thinking about my finances, and one of the things I wanted to make sure I didn't do is live paycheck to paycheck, and it was looking almost very, very possible. So I started doing numbers, and I went to the bank, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna need to make a loan, and I'm gonna request for an X amount, and the X amount was under $10,000. And they denied it. And I'm like, yo, I'm going almost 10 years not having paid a single bill late, being responsible financially. Scary moments were scary moments, but I showed that I was responsible and resilient financially. And they were like, no, we can't offer you that. However, if you are willing to take out a loan for $36,000, we're willing to give you a fixed rate for 5 years. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't need $6,000.
Right.
So the point is, in order for me to have to stay afloat, I would have to throw myself deeper into debt. And that's something that's super terrifying and so easy to happen to many of us. And that's why a lot of us, unfortunately, have that $40 situation that's questionable.
At 110%. And I my heart goes out because I lived that life for a very, very, very long time. And it sucks. It's like you're doing all the right things and you still can't get ahead, it feels like. You know what I mean? And by the way, as you're talking about the loan, what comes to my mind is if you would have gone and asked for a $100,000 student loan, you would have had people fighting over giving you that loan. You know what I'm saying? Because that they would have been, they're okay with that, right? Yeah, $100,000 for this college degree, we'll gladly give it out to you with this predatory rate. You know, that is okay, but you know, under 10 grand, sorry, we can't we can't do that.
And it's so crazy because the funny recommendation they gave me was, well, try to take out a hard cash loan. I mean, like, isn't that predatory? And they were like, well, I'm like, yo, you're not helping me. You're not helping me. You know?
Bro, it's definitely a sad state of affairs. But I do like kind of what you're talking about, the idea of organizing and things like that, right? And yeah, it just takes us doing a little bit of the work and coming together to really start making some of that change happen that we'd be hoping for. Now, on a lighter side of things, I just want to quickly touch on this breakup news because a lot of people are in their feelings about this celebrity investment of Raul Alejandro and Rosalia. Two singers have broken up, right? And everybody's losing their mind because it was painted as like the perfect relationship. They had just put out like an album together, and there's a music video that's like, you know, puts you in your feels, and like if you're not in love, makes you want to be in love. If you are in a relationship, makes you think, why is my partner not like that, right? So all of this painted thing on social media, and then it ends, right? But it's an interesting conversation in general, I think, around the fact that not everything you view on social media is actually real life, right? And that goes for people who aren't just celebrities. It goes for the everyday person. Exactly. And then also, we also live in a culture where it feels like people don't save something for themselves, right? Like they are posting their relationship, every vacation, every memory, every little thing. I've seen people post, you know, some of their bedroom, antics, whatever it is, right? Like there's one girl that comes to mind of like her posting the lingerie she was wearing on Valentine's Day. Like that's supposed to be a private thing for you and your partner, right? It's a special thing, whatever it is, right? And it's just interesting that that's become kind of our instinct, is to share, right? So I'm curious for you, what is kind of your policy on, in general, sharing your private life, be it your relationship? Obviously, you have a kid as well. So what's kind of your take on where we are and kind of what you think about it all?
So the first thing is I was putting the S sign. So that's like social media, so sad. I'm still a skeptic. I'm gonna be honest. I'm a skeptic. I worked 17 years in the music business. You know, I signed a couple NDAs. So what I do know is that oftentimes when these celebrity couples come together, especially if they're artistically connected to one another and their, ability to profit is being affected, some sort of controversy is created that makes people want to be more supportive. And in today's world, even if you're trying to figure out who this couple is, you're listening to their music. That's profitable to business, and if their breakup becomes so popular online, then people are going to continue to look into these artists, which makes the music, whoever's controlling their music profit. And what if they get together again and create another album and go on tour? That's why I look at it as, I'm a skeptic, and you know what? I'm sorry if their thing is real, but if it's not real, guess what? I'm not sorry. It's like how I think. As a skeptic, it's all about money, and if they need to make bread, guess what? Make some controversy happen, and they get together again, and everyone makes money. However, on the other point, with people oversharing, I think that has a lot more to do with how society has a very narcissistic, method of making us appreciate life. We're not given opportunities to be more thankful and quiet in our, appreciations and days.
Yeah.
We're given the, oh, wow, take a quick picture of that. Oh, wow, look, there's a QR code next to it. So share it. Oh, wow. Like an overabundance of just sharing all the things that make you cool. And that's fine. I'm not hating on that part, But when people place a lot of validity on social media, then it really dilutes from the value of your real life.
Yeah.
Because if, your 100 amazing, beautiful pictures on Instagram wind up being erased tomorrow because Instagram had a fit and, some vortex ate it, that doesn't mean life is no longer significant. If your 6 million followers disappear because Elon Musk, decided to just say, you know what, I'm now going to eat up the internet until everyone decides to subscribe to X. You understand? Does that mean your 90,000 likes that you accrued on Twitter and on Instagram mean nothing? Does it mean your 10 million followers on Instagram mean that, your life means nothing? No, it just, you now have to embrace the real validity of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree completely. And it's funny, like, it's interesting. What was coming to my mind as you're kind of talking, we've kind of become programmed that, like, it's like, okay, I'm having this great moment, in the real world. You know what would make it even better? If I posted it on social media and shared it with everybody, right? So, like, you're not even living presently in the beauty of whatever it is that you're trying to celebrate. Your mind is immediately going to, how can I show this to a bunch of people to then have them confirm that this is in fact a great moment, right? And
Very
that's
true.
like, and listen, I'm guilty of that as well. And as self-aware and all these things as I am, I have to stop myself sometimes where I'm like about to post something. I'm like, wait, why do I need to go and share this with anybody and make it a whole big thing for anybody other than those that are involved in it, right? And I have to check myself, but we've been programmed to, like, think that the, top of the top of happiness exists when other people are jealous or co-sign the thing that we got.
I like that you honestly, and I'm gonna be saying that was honest. The jealousy word. A lot of people are very, like, I'm gonna say, scared to even address jealousy, like hateration. Guess what? Sometimes I'm gonna be 100% raw. Sometimes when you live in the limelight, you have to drop it. You have to be able to share that, oh, wow moment, because you have enough people that really want to be part of whatever you're doing and supportive of what you're doing. That's where the whole endorsement opportunities come from. So if you shy away from that, then you start losing on those opportunities to earn endorsements.
Right. And sometimes you need that you do sometimes for a branding perspective. Also, the way the world is, people won't trust you unless they're seeing you, like, live out some sort of fantasy that they want, right? That's also, like, a bit of it. So you have to sometimes flex to let people know you're serious, you know what I mean? Or you know what you're talking about.
Exactly. And then the other thing is that social media does afford the many of us the opportunity to remain relevant to whoever is watching our stuff. Relevant to whatever it is that we're trying to remain relevant for. So it keeps us connected. Like my family is from South America, so we're up on the trends when it comes to social media. Facebook is something that I created so that I can stay in touch with people that I went to school with. And Instagram is something I created so that I can be able to share, my everyday with anyone that's just watching it. I had no idea how any of that stuff worked. But now we're at a point where we realize, we're recording our entire lives. And some company or one company owns all of it. And we may lose control of it all, but we can never forget our true value.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And last thing I'll say on this, it's also funny to me, like, when people in relationships, it's like always a meme, but like they'll watch this video, like the music video they had for that song Beso was like very romantic, whatever. And you'll have like one of the people that you're dating be like, how come our relationship isn't like that? You know what I mean? Or and like, and it's like, bro, because that's not real life. Like that's not how, right? Like relationships aren't this pretty 3-minute video of us just having the greatest time of our life and having a highlight reel. Like that's what you're seeing. Somebody's highlight reel. That's not real life. That's not how it works.
I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to blame it on Sex in the City. Before social media, there was Sex in the City. And Sex in the City made all women delusional because they thought about meeting up every day after work from our team and talk about the perfect orgy. No, that's not what life is about.
Right.
They pose the image in front of you for you to want to rise up to it. And every time you fail, you keep trying and trying and trying. And someone else is profiting. And unfortunately, you keep hurting yourself. But blame it on Sex in the City, bro.
This is the first time I think on this podcast we've gotten to Sex in the City. So I appreciate that us getting here. Man, yeah, I think all true stuff. Last thing, I'm not going to dive super deep into this because it's a very long conversation, but I did want to acknowledge the fact that it's actually Puerto Rico's 125th anniversary as a United States colony.
Well,
colony,
I applaud it. 120. Yeah. 125, right? 25?
Yeah, 125 years.
Beautiful.
As a colony, though. That's the only thing. As a colony.
Well, here's the thing. Again, I told you. Family is from South America. So when it comes to the politics of the island, I listen more than I chime in.
Sure.
I have respect for all my people, all my friends, all my family members, because my wife is Puerto Rican. You know, it's one of the things that I will always challenge anyone that represents the Lone Star with the red and white.
Yeah.
Ask yourself the truest benefit of becoming a state, or ask yourself the truest benefit of becoming independent. And then push yourselves to share that expression enough so that many of us here in the States can also support your decision, your desire, and we can help Puerto Rico, the island, the island, the nation island. I call it the island nation, the nation island. They're wrong, 135. The whole point is that I think the entire community needs to rise up and help support the island out of the situation that it's in. Because once again, if Daddy Yankee can sell out 15 days in a row throughout the entire island, then the money, the sustainability is already there. You understand?
Yeah. No, I agree on that. And I think the frustrating part about it is nobody's willing to do the work to actually get to the bottom of being educated on what it would mean to be a state or what it would mean to be independent, right? You know, I have my own thoughts and ideas that, you know, I support more independence, but I also know there are a lot of people who are lackadaisical as well, right? When it comes to just living in the status quo of it all. And my concern being that, the people not educating themselves enough then getting taken advantage of, right? And I think that's kind of why you see the split that you see right now, is where some people live in this fantasy that becoming a state, they're all going to become rich all of a sudden and it solves all of their problems, you know? And then others also forget the sort of process that it's going to take in order for Puerto Rico to become independent and maintain the quality of life that they've been used to. And you have to do the hard work to educate yourself on both of those topics of conversation. I don't think we're there yet, which is kind of why we're in this limbo state in general. Aside from the U.S.'s obvious not really giving us a real choice, but also the people not really deciding what the hell they actually want at the end of the day.
That's what it comes down to. I mean, the people need to, unite themselves and figure the direction that they truly want to go into. Yeah. Because when you truly think about it, as a Latino, as a person that comes from South America, when you consider how many successful celebrities, very well-paid celebrities, come from the island of Puerto Rico. Aside from the actual affluent people that come from Puerto Rico, and you add that to the very successful business people from the island, your solution is already there, completely free of whatever the government thinks, needs to be fixed or not. The solution's already there, but people want to own baseball teams and people want to get into owning basketball teams. I get it.
Yeah. Right. Or own a restaurant in Miami rather than Puerto Rico. Yeah, that's what you could say. But yeah, no, we're on the same page with that one. I agree. There's too many wealthy people from Puerto Rico, and they're investing in places other than the island where they should be, because they can fix a lot of these problems. You know what I mean? But that's a topic for another conversation. I could deep dive into that. Let's pause here. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll touch on a more positive story to kind of close things out here. You good for like another 5 minutes, bro?
Yeah. I'm with you. Let me know how long you need me. I'm with you. Thank you for real, and thank you for like my daughter, babe. Like I really just keep my baby around. You know what I'm saying? She's like the light of my life. You know what I'm saying? So
I love it.
You know what I'm saying? If you don't edit her out, I think that would be dope, because a lot of times.
No, yeah, she's gonna stay in.
Thank you. When people follow my social media, the times that I've been called for castings and all that stuff, it's like, yo, you're a real dad, bro. Like, we'll bring you in. We like that dad swag. That's cool. So that's
bro.
The wild part is you got me chiming in on topics, bro, and I look at all this fucking gray, and I'm like, why am I even talking so much about this?
Nah, bro. We all got an opinion. We all got lived experience that's helpful for these conversations.
So is it your DJ Ramos? Is your last name Ramos?
Ramos is my last name. Dramos is like the full name. My name is Danny Ramos, so it's just Dramos put together. But yeah, Ramos is my last name.
That's pretty cool, bro. Like I looked at it from when I was told about Dramos. I'm like, okay, I'm looking it up, and then I'm like looking at it, it's like, is his last name Ramos? Is
right? Yeah.
So I'm like, cool, man.
Yeah. It worked out that I got to kind of keep my real name worked into it, I guess, as well. So it's not as weird when people call me Dramos.
So I've been listening to your podcasts, and I really like how introspective and like continuous you keep the conversation.
Thank you, bro.
Like my son plays college football. Like, well, he's about to play college football, and I've been listening to tons of podcasts about college football, and I realize how erratic and all over the place many speakers are. But listening to your podcast, I'm like hearing a whole drawn out conversation where I'm like, yo, this dude made me feel like we're like literally chilling in a lounge or in a room talking about this topic, like, with like music in the background and shit. Like it was dope. And you kept the conversation so fluid and by yourself. I'm like, this, like he don't sound like he's talking to himself. He's literally carrying the topic and expressing it like a professor, bro. So kudos to you.
Thank you, brother. I really do appreciate that. I think I don't like to prep too much. I kind of have my points that I know I want to get to, but I don't read a script. So I think that helps kind of keep it more conversational. You know what I mean? And wherever it goes, it goes. So that's kind of my thought process. So I appreciate you recognizing that and appreciating it.
Bro, that's dope, man. So,
I think your Wi-Fi is getting a little choppy in that area.
What it is that room? No, I'm in the same part of the room. However, it's that I'm charging the battery a little before my phone. Yeah, my battery is still red. So, but I'm on the network. I'm not on the Wi-Fi because the Wi-Fi is we in the Bronx, bro. She's whack.
Now it's coming through good. All right, we'll finish up this segment over here. All right, man. So we've been talking about a lot of heavy stuff, deep diving into a lot of topics that are really difficult. This is more of a positive one as it's moving in the right direction, I think, and it's hopefully going to break a lot of the stereotypes. I mean, as somebody who works in acting and things like that, a lot of the roles stereotypically that have been given to Latinos is drug-related roles, gangsters, things like that, right? And a lot of it has to do with the glorification of a very dark history, right? So one of those things is the history of like Narcos, right? And you had recently Pablo Escobar's museum home that was demolished after a Medellin judge ordered for it to be demolished. And his excuse, or their excuse, was that it lacked a municipal permit. But a lot of people are saying that this is actually a move that Medellin, the city, is trying to get rid of that sort of history that they have, and not be recognized for that anymore. And they're saying this whole like narco tourism has become this new industry ever since the Netflix show Narcos, and they say that it just continues to keep opening a wound left by someone like Pablo Escobar, who obviously hurt and killed a lot of people, and also is responsible for uprooting the government as well at times. So it's an interesting kind of move where they're trying to get into a different direction, which I think it's healthy, right? Because these are, it's like, this is an interesting conversation even about us as human beings and the things that we follow, we're entertained by. Like the fact that people travel to Colombia not to experience the beauty of it, but because they want to go relive and retrace the steps of somebody who killed a lot of people in cold blood, or made the command for others to kill many others in cold blood, right? And we somehow just think as human beings, this is a normal thing. It's okay. It's not weird that we're going to like experience this, So I think it is a step in the right direction, even just like humanitarian, like in a humanity type of aspect, where maybe we can get out of some of these weird mindsets that we have where we dehumanize people's pain.
Well, I think once again, like a skeptic, I always think like a skeptic.
Sure.
I feel that perhaps the government had a vested interest in taking over the territory, the property, and maybe doing something with it. You also have to question who actually owned the rights to the museum. I don't think that a figure as high profile as Pablo Escobar could have, completely met his demise without some form of, agreement that would be profitable to certain governments over his belongings and the display of. So to be real, I think perhaps maybe Colombia may have mishandled the rights and properties of the, Escobar estates. And somehow someone else was profiting from it. And then eventually, like we Latinos say, ja, enough.
Right.
That's it. They cut it off. If they had to burn it down, they burn it down. But whatever, you get rid of it. I, for one, am half Colombian and Ecuadorian, and oftentimes it does hurt me when people only think about Pablo Escobar's achievements when it comes to acknowledging the beautiful nation of Colombia. It's glorified through shows on television and merchandising and music videos and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But, there are other things for which to appreciate the nation. So after being a skeptic and thinking it through, I'm going to say kudos to the nation of Colombia and of the plague that was La Mansión de Don Pablito.
I love that response. I'm glad that we had a real sort of heartfelt attachment to it with you being from there. You know what I mean? And you know what? If only the U.S. could get on board with taking out some of the Confederate statues, I think everybody would be moving in a right direction. But I get your skepticism. I completely understand it. But yeah, I think especially like, let's talk about Colombia for a second, because Colombia, I've seen so many people going over there because it's having such like a boom right now, right? Like, and how beautiful the city is, and how many, the different opportunities that are out there. A lot of people from the States going over there and spending, tons of time, and I'm sure money over there. It's like things like this keep perpetuating a bad rap about a country that you expressed, that is beautiful and has so much more to offer than just the idea that it's overrun by narcos and all these things, and as with anything, you don't know the area. You got to be careful where you go in any place in the world, right? But to make it seem like that is the only thing that came out of Colombia, or Colombia has to offer, is a crazy, crazy sort of stereotype that definitely needs to kind of come to an end.
Exactly, bro. There's so many amazing. First off, coffee. I'm a coffee drinker. Go and go and experience the coffee villas where they grow the coffee. some of the most beautiful beaches, rainforests, all that stuff is out there. You don't have to just say, hey, I want to go see where Pablo Escobar lived, you know?
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I think, shit like this obviously moves in a direction also where tourism brings in real tourism, can bring in actual money and help, places that actually need it, that have so much to offer. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of at the core what we're talking about. So, man, my dude, I appreciate you for hopping on. It's been great getting your perspective, man. I love all the insights and being able to just have like this well-rounded conversation. Where can people check you out? Anything you want to promote, you want to push them to?
Absolutely. Thank you so very much. I'm sorry for moving around a lot. It's just that I didn't, charge my battery enough. So please follow me on Instagram. That's at the Funny Latino, TheFunnyLatino. Hit the link, because right now I'm also being nominated as one of the best Bronx comedians of 2023. So just hit the link and just vote.
Nice.
Find it and vote. I'm nominated with some pretty cool names. So congratulations to all the nominees. At the same time, I'll be performing August 1st for what is known as the NYPD Night Out. That is the police department of New York City's effort to bring together the communities, and the police officers from every precinct serve their communities. So there'll be grilling, hot dogs, burgers. There'll be games, so many things for the community, and it's going to be the officers connecting with the community, and I'll be hosting that event. That's going to be happening in the Soundview section of the Bronx. Look for it as Bronx Night Out. I'll be there August 1st. And then in October, I'm working on my Hispanic Heritage tribute show, which will be comedy, bilingual comedy, which I realize I'm having a lot of fun doing comedy in Espanol, because I really appreciate having learned the language. So why not practice in Spanish?
I love it, my bro. Well, when you have that coming up, we got to have you back on to make sure we get the word out about that so people can check it out.
Thank you, my brother. And if you ever need a comedian out on the West Coast, just let me know. I'm out there, bro. I'll jump on a flight and do it.
I love it, my dude. I appreciate you.
All right, bro, man. Be good.
Man, big shout out to my guest this week, Roman S, a.k.a. the Funny Latino, for hopping on. I love, man. I don't know. I appreciate the fact that there are so many people within our community that can do the entertainment stuff. We can have fun, but are also making sure that they're educating themselves and we're taking the time to talk about the real shit that goes on, right? The real shit that is affecting us and the things that need to change in this world, in our community, all of the above, right? I just think, I think it's all about balance, right? We got to be well informed. We could still have fun. We could enjoy life and all those different things, but we're not doing ourselves any favors if we are not, trying to also be up on the things that need to change and doing our part to make things better, right? So I love being able to connect with people like him who are able to kind of find that balance. I like to think that I try to exist somewhere in that balance as well. So big shout out to him, the Funny Latino, Roman S. Now, with that said, I want to hear from y'all. I want to get y'all's take on one of these topics that we were talking about today. So we'll do that for our Ask a Gringo segment.
Ask a Gringo.
I have a question.
All right, so for this week's Ask a Gringo segment, I'm basing it somewhat off of that conversation around Rosalia and Raul Alejandro, their breakup. And I just think it's first of all, I just want to say I'm way more invested in this relationship than is healthy as a grown man. And I have no problem admitting that, and I'm not going to be ashamed of it. But I was heartbroken when I saw this thing pop up, because you had seen like there were things online of like him at the club and like Camila Cabello was there, and then there was something with like him hanging out with Shakira, and it was just like, please don't tell me that. They just, I don't know, man. That song Beso, I gotta say, like that was a song that I loved. I don't know if loving that song is wrong, but if it is, as they say, I don't want to be right. And the video was just, listen, I'm a romantic at heart, so things like that, they just kind of tug at my heartstrings a little bit. So yeah, Beso video and just their relationship from the public perspective, was a beautiful thing. But on that conversation of things being public and sharing it and making your personal life public for everybody to see on things like social media, I wanted to have a conversation around that, right? And the question I posed was, do you think that it's normal, or not even that it's normal, are you the type to share your personal life on social media, share everything with social media, specifically when it comes to your relationship, posting the person that you're dating, sharing intimate moments that you guys have together, making it public for the world and strangers to see? Or do you believe that you should keep those things, private for real life, right? And the real people that you actually interact with on a regular basis? And I'm going to give you my opinion real quick before we get to the answers, because selfishly, I want to share my own opinion. Plus, it's my podcast. Come on. So anyway, I personally am of the mindset that I don't post the person that I'm dating, right? And I've been in long-term relationships, and I've tried to stay true to this. I don't post generally pictures of like my family or anything like that. I try to keep all that kind of stuff pretty private, right? And obviously my work, it kind of keeps me a bit out there where I have to be posting on social media as a part of my job. And I feel like I have this dialogue with anybody who follows me. It's like we're a community, right? And this is a movement, and a part of what I do is share my own personal experiences as a means to make other people feel seen, right? So a part of that is obviously I'm going to share a lot of my life. But I think there are lines, and I think even if I wasn't doing something that, kind of puts me in a more public eye, I would still want that sense of privacy. I think for me as it stands right now, anybody that doesn't like me, has a problem with the content I make, the things that I say, if I'm posting the people I care about, it makes them a target for these haters' wrath as well, right? And again, even if I wasn't somebody who was making public commentary, I think it just opens up the opportunity for other people to be in our business, for other people to, possibly cause drama, cause issues. And now I'm not saying I'm like hiding the fact that I'm in a relationship, right? Because I don't think that's right either. I think that I have a right, or the person that I'm dating, should be acknowledged. People should know that I'm in a relationship, and that I'm not available for, whatever flirtations or advances or things like that, right? So when I have been in relationships, and you could, anybody's been listening to this podcast for a decent amount of time, I've never been shy about saying, that I'm in a relationship, or talking about, examples or conversations from my relationship, right? I've never hid the fact that I was dating somebody. So that's kind of where I stand on all of that kind of stuff. I think that we get into, I don't know, we're just in this weird space where we feel like we have to share and document every single thing. And I think that cheapens the moments a little bit, right? And I said this before, I'm not above it. I've been there before, but it's like almost as if nothing matters unless it's validated on social media. And I think that's just not a real healthy way to live. And it's poisoned all of our brains to a degree. And I want to clarify a statement I was talking about before I get into your answers. I had mentioned like a girl that I follow, or I'm friends with, that was posting a picture of like her in lingerie from like Valentine's Day, like from, what she was wearing for her man. And I'm not shaming her for posting a lingerie pic. She can do whatever she wants. That's her life. Has nothing to do with me. What I'm saying is, to me, that's an example. And there's multiple people I've seen who did that. These are moments that are supposed to be intimate moments, like special moments, right? Like, Valentine's Day, maybe you want to get real sexy with your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it might be, your significant other, and you do something out of the norm, right? You buy a special piece of lingerie, in this case, for that night, to do something out of the norm. Maybe you rent a hotel room, whatever it might be. And those are supposed to be like really intimate, personal moments that happen behind closed doors, that are like supposed to be special moments that you're curating just for each other. And it shows you that even those moments that are literally like holidays that are curated just for the two of you in your relationship, people still feel the urge and the need to go ahead and share that with the rest of the world, because the moment itself isn't enough unless they get the validation, right? And that to me is a scary kind of place to be, because I think as humans you got to share, not share, save certain things, I want to say, for yourself, right? Even in real life, you're not sharing the every aspect of your relationship with everybody around you, right? There are like levels to it. Like maybe your acquaintances and your coworkers know certain things, but they don't know it to the depth of your best friend, right? And your best friend doesn't know to the depth of your partner, right? There are levels to sharing, and I think that's natural and that's normal, because not everybody needs to know everything. But social media has kind of clouded those waters a bit, and yeah, I think we sort of remove some of the intimacy from moments that are meant to be intimate. And I think that kind of cheapens them just a little bit. That's my take. Now let's hear from y'all, okay? I selfishly took up some time there to give you my whole take on that specifically, because then we got into this whole conversation about social media, which I didn't mind at all. But let's see here. I got a bunch of answers on this one that I want to read off here. I'll read off as many as I can. I love this one right here. At Rem Thang says, I personally wouldn't do it. Our love doesn't need validation from anyone. And I love that. I think that that's beautifully said. I think that is what we're talking about here, because we're all posting on social media for extra validation. And when it comes to your relationship, if you're posting intimate moments and you're looking for outside validation about your relationship, that's just not a healthy way to view said relationship, right? That the love of that person, knowing that you have that love, is enough. You also need other people to co-sign it, is obviously not a healthy mindset. Let's see. At Bad Billy Bondo says, some of us don't even make ourselves public. Privacy is priceless. And this is funny because Bad Billy Bondo doesn't even like have like a real picture on Instagram. It's like an avatar of something. So homie or homegirl doesn't even post themselves. So why would they post their significant other? They value privacy, which I absolutely love. Last one I'll read here that I have time for. At Natasha Lucia says, private on social, but smother me in actual public. And this I'm on board with, right? I'm cool with public displays of affection. I'm cool with, having hands all over your significant other if they're into that, if they're cool with it. I'm okay with that. I'm that type of person. Like I'm not like, tonguing down my partner at the local coffee shop, but like no problem, kissing in public, holding hands, maybe, caressing a little butt cheek every once in a while. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm all about that. I'm fine with that, because that is not something I'm doing for entertainment for somebody else, the public, the person at the coffee shop, at the restaurant, at IKEA, wherever it's happening. Like I'm not doing that to put on a show for anybody else. I'm just expressing myself in a real way to that person. I think that's what we're talking about. Whereas on social media, it's like this forced thing that we're doing literally just for people's it literally is for other people's validation, and literally like a cosign. Like you're looking for other people to give you the go ahead. Like, yeah, that's a great moment, because of the likes that you got. Or like we're talking about the lingerie picture where it's like your dude telling you look amazing and that you look hot wasn't enough. Now you need every thirsty person on that Instagram that follows you to be commenting on it to let you know that, yeah, you looked hot in that lingerie that you were putting on for your significant other. So just food for thought. I agree with you on that one, Natasha. I think we are on the same page there. And I got a bunch more. We don't really have time to get into all of them, but yeah, I think it seems like most people, from what their response is here, because I didn't get anybody saying like, no, I want to post that shit all the time, and I don't think anybody would admit that, because it's just like we're then admitting that we are requiring other people's validation at the end of the day. But yeah, listen, Not everything needs to make it on the internet. I think that's my moral of the story. And in general, not everything is for everyone else. It always bugs me out when people that I barely know, or people that I know, but like that I don't need to know that much about your personal life, where they're oversharing details about their relationship and venting to me when it's like, yo, we're not even that close. You are just telling anybody who would listen really personal details about yourself and the person that you are in a relationship with, right? And to me, the idea of getting in a relationship is that you are kind of creating this bond that is very personal and is exclusive and intimate to just the two of you. And that means moments that you share together. That means things that you share together, right? And that's supposed to be just for the two of you. It's not supposed to be for anybody who will listen, type of thing, So just I don't know, my thought process on this. I'm still heartbroken over this breakup. I don't know if I could listen to that song the same way again. Because that just, if you haven't listened to Best, that's a banger. That was like, I would say the beginning of this summer, that has been on repeat in my car. I'm no shame admitting this. It's been on repeat in my car. Me just sitting there like with my invisible love story that doesn't exist currently. Just vibing out to that song. Damn it. Well, hey, things happen, right? And I hope they're both happy, even though it's left me heartbroken. Anyway, let's wrap things up. I feel like we're getting off the rails a little bit. We'll wrap things up. We'll tie everything we talked about today in a neat little bow in a segment we call Conclusions Stew.
Time for conclusions stew.
All right, so we dove heavy into these topics that we talked about today with the funny comedian Roman S. Again, big shout out to him for hopping on the show. Going to quickly kind of summarize all that we talked about. We started with the idea that the top percent, children from the wealthiest families, they're the ones twice as likely to attend elite universities. And again, we didn't need a study to tell us that. But the thing that is crazy to me when I read the numbers that they came up with here, they said that they found that attending one of those elite institutions has long-lasting effects, increasing students' chances of being the top 1% of income by 60%. So going to one of those universities increases someone's chance of becoming a part of the top 1% by 60%. So it's no surprise why the majority of the people who are wealthy in this country who hold the power all look the same for the most part, right? Because it also says how it doubles their chances of going into an elite grad school and triples their chances of getting employed at a prestigious firm. And again, the thing with this, they get employed at a prestigious firm. Eventually, they rise the ranks at said prestigious firm. They're in a position now where they're a hiring manager. They're going to hire more people who have a similar background to themselves. And the cycle just continues to perpetuate itself. And that's the problem with this. And that's why things like affirmative action ending are detrimental to communities of color, but are also incredibly hypocritical, right? The fact that this is allowed to have this type of criteria to favor people who are legacies, their family members went there, or are large donors, that right there should be unconstitutional, right? If you're saying it's unconstitutional to favor people of color who have similar test scores, why is that okay then? And again, it's just remnants of an old system of white supremacy that continues on, and they don't see a problem with that. But us trying to get our fair shake at this thing called life, obviously they're going to raise some eyebrows at that. Now, moving on to this whole conversation around workers' rights, right? We had the farm worker Efrain Lopez Garcia, who sadly lost his life in Florida in July earlier this month, and how that's sort of provoking conversation around putting laws in place that essentially require jobs to give a shit about their employees when they're working in conditions like this. You have UPS, who almost went on strike, and one of the things that they were asking for was air conditioning in their trucks in 2023, which is fucking wild to me that's not even just like a given, that this has to be something they have to fight for. And listen, the list goes on with all types of inhumane conditions that are just not being either checked out by the powers that be, or there are no laws in place because it just seems like such a ridiculous thing that we even have to put a law in place. The fact that it has to be a part of the contract that the truck that these guys are and girls are and that these people are riding around in all day long should have temperature control. The fact that that has to go into a written contract is wild to me in 2023. The fact that they have to put a law in place in Miami-Dade County that tells jobs that they have to provide their workers with water and breaks on days that the heat index is above 90 degrees and that they have to give them breaks in the shade. The fact that this is even something that has to be put into law and it's just not a given as human beings is really disheartening. And I think that's like I'm at this place in my life, right? We talk about awareness, and I'm going to do a whole episode on awareness and a few other things coming up, but I talk about awareness a lot. Self-awareness, right? Your relationship with yourself, awareness of the relationship you have with those around you, but also awareness of your relationship with the world around you. Because at the end of the day, all of us are citizens of this planet Earth, right? We're all sharing this space. We're sharing this planet. And we need to start treating each other with a little bit more concern and a little bit more humanity and understanding that what's good for this other person is always going to be good for me, right? These companies, if their employees are safe, if their employees are happy, they're going to produce better results, right? If we are giving a shit about things like the environment, we're actually going to have a planet to live on that is not destroying itself and not giving us erratic weather conditions like this, right? So we have to have this awareness that we are a part of a bigger system. And while, of course, we all have our individual lives, none of that matters if everything around us is burning, right? And we have to think about our roommates essentially on this shared space that is planet Earth. And we have to try and do better as just human beings. And this selfish capitalistic mentality that we've been brought up specifically in this country, but I'm sure around the world, it's a detriment to what is actually healthy for us as human beings, both individually and as a whole. And that's just something I want to begin to just start driving home and force us to look at each other just a bit differently and the world around us and understand like we all have a part to play. And part of that is just humanizing one another and treating people like humans and not putting the almighty dollar above human life and human decency at the end of the day, which is sadly like what we're seeing with cases like this one. And then we touched on the Raul Alejandro and Rosalia breakup. I don't think I have to dive back into that anymore. I am heartbroken. But also, good conversation about the idea of like, maybe we don't need to put our relationships out there for everybody to see every detail and pose this whole perfect picture of what it looks like to date one another. Not saying that that's what caused their relationship to end, but I think it brings a lot of unwanted attention and a lot of unnecessary pressure at the end of the day. And lastly, we talked about this in the Mi Gente segment, the Pablo Escobar Museum home being demolished in Medellin. I love how Roman had his sort of theory as a bit of a cynic and more, I guess, a realist, if you will. But I think either way, it's a step in the right direction. I think as we address a dark history, I think this is like what the U.S. has been missing as far as slavery, and why we still have like these Confederate statues, all these things, and that's why these issues still continue to plague us till this day, is because we are trying to sweep everything under the rug rather than face it head on, acknowledge it, and move on from it, right? And start moving completely in a new direction. And that's what it seems like the government is trying to do here in Colombia, specifically Medellin, is get away from the history, the dark history of the narcos, and move on and start a new chapter for Colombia, and specifically we're talking about Medellin, the city of Medellin. And I think that that's the right way to do things, is to not sit here glorifying the negative aspects of humanity and not sitting here pretending like they didn't happen, but acknowledging and then moving forward, as best as we can. Also, it's just weird that and listen, I get it. I watched the movie Scarface and I watched Narcos obsessively, all these things. So I'm not above it. But it is crazy how invested and how we can take, again, the humanity out of these situations and simply be entertained by this glorified violence that we're seeing, this dude, Pablo Escobar. I know a lot of people could say, yeah, he did. He gave money to a lot of people, helped a lot of people, right? That's sort of the complexity of somebody like him. But he also murdered a lot of people in cold blood or ordered the hit of a lot of people. A lot of people lost their fathers, their mothers, and there were public bombings and things like that in the city where innocent victims were killed for no reason whatsoever, just so he can continue to maintain power and build his operation, right? So it's entertaining, I get it, but we also got to be aware of what we're glorifying, and have that awareness that there are actual real victims on the other side of these stories that we're being entertained by, I guess. That's a whole. I want to actually have a conversation about that as a full episode. Maybe there's an expert, some sort of doctor who studies in that field that we can kind of talk about a little bit, or somebody who's written a bunch about it, way more research than me. I'd love to have that conversation, just analyze the human psyche, because again, I'm guilty of it as well. I just think it's an interesting conversation, an interesting observation about where we are as human beings these days. So I'm gonna look into that. Now, with that said, thank y'all so much for tuning into today's show. I'm gonna put this in the show notes one more time. Just Be Social Club. I believe we have one spot left, and it might be filled by the time this airs. But if the link is open, click it. You can schedule your one-on-one with myself and my partner, our coach, Brenda, and see if it's a good fit for you, our mastermind group, our mentoring group that we have going on. Again, after tomorrow, Friday, the 28th, that is the last day. We're closing our doors on Friday, the 28th. You will not be able to join after that. This is actually going to be the last version of this, right? So get in while you can, because we're going to do a different version of it moving forward as we try to scale and be able to offer it to more people. So this is kind of going to be this last version where it's very intimate and kind of group oriented in this way. So if you want to be a part of the OG version of this, it's your last shot. Links are in the show notes. The info is all in the show notes. Literally just click the link, put some time on the schedule for a one-on-one between today and tomorrow, and we'll see if it's a good fit for you to join the Just Be Social Club. All right. Now, with that said, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I will catch you on Tuesday with a brand new episode. Until then, have an amazing weekend. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon. Peace.